absolutely wild as Vern Gagne's All-Star Wrestling goes coast to coast and continent to continent. The greatest wrestlers in the world.
He may be an apprentice carpenter, but I guarantee you he is a seasoned ring veteran.
I've been hit with bar stools, bar rags, barmaids.
I'm talking to you.
They're scared that Hulkamania's still running wild. Oh, yeah. I got a big fat wife and 9 kids at home, and I gotta feed them.
And take a look at Jesse the Body in real life.
Open your hand once, if you would.
You understand?
This is absolutely unbelievable. Totally, completely out of control.
He's coming in over the top. Hey! Look out!
Welcome into AWA Unleashed. We are the preeminent #1 podcast dedicated to the memories and the stories of the American Wrestling Association. My name is Chris Tubbs, and I'm having a bad hair day. That's why I'm wearing my hat. But two people that never have bad hair days, Polish Joe, he ain't wearing a hat. Mick Karch, he's wearing an AWA Unleashed hat.
Right.
You're mark for the podcast than I am, but that's okay.
All right, it is. I'm repping the brand.
Chris, but you always wear a hat.
That's true. You guys don't want to see me without a hat, okay?
Come on.
Okay, fine. I look like a damn Cupid doll. Okay, see there.
I think there's our new product.
You like that?
We got the Tubbsy Troll Doll.
I am a troll doll. I've been called a troll before.
Wow. Okay, we've seen enough. We get it.
Now, you know what? This is my new look. This is my gimmick. It's a Tubbsy troll doll.
Hey,
I'm gonna vote for the hat.
Nah, we're gonna go with this. Hold on. There.
oh my
What's that?
God.
Looks like the missing link now without makeup.
Oh, yes. I'll take that. Okay, there we go. There I am in all of my glory. We want to welcome you guys in. We're going to continue a theme from last week where we talked with Miss Bunny Love, a really frank and honest conversation.
Sure.
I got to admit, guys, I wasn't real familiar. As the kids say, I wasn't familiar with your game, but just what we heard in the little bit, just very, very frank and honest. And I appreciate the openness because sometimes people are a little reserved. She cut open the vein and she's like, let's just get right down to the nitty gritty. So I appreciate that. We're going to continue with the conversation about the ladies this week. But before we do, I'm going to let you guys fast forward about, you know what? Let's say about 90 seconds to do the plugs here. Okay, coming down in 3, 2, and 1. Okay, first of all, you guys, if you want to become a Pinfall member, highly recommend this because $4.99 a month, you get access to the podcast a day early. You get access to our exclusive monthly video watch-alongs with the updated commentary. Mystery Science Theater 3000 meets professional wrestling with exclusive AWA footage put together by our own Polish Joe Chupik. You get our Back to Ringside with Mick and myself. It's a show that we try and do weekly that we talk about the current state of the wrestling business. You get a personalized thank you letter from myself. It is handwritten. You might not be able to read it, but trust me, it will be my handwriting. And it's going to come with an Unleashed sticker and a magnet. You get 5 photos from Slick Mick's Picks. Plus, we also have a fun little ditty, something that I'm going to try and create. It's going to take a little bit of work. I was kicking around to Mick. Mick liked it. Joe, you were on a call. I'll kind of fill you in after and kind of get your thoughts. But we've got that all for $4.99 a month. Again, we do feel like it is the best value in wrestling podcasting. Along with that, if you want to become a Pinfall member, that would be great. But if you want to also get your gimmicks, your AWA Unleashed gimmicks, your Slick Mick gimmicks, tpublic.com/user/Unleash Plus. Help us out. There it is in 3, 2, 1, mark.
Well done. Well done.
I still can't get over the hair, but
And I, just for the folks at home, I am having a little audio difficulty on my end, so you'll hear me, but I'm not hearing the guys real well. So we'll try to wing it as best as we can. Kind of comes in and out.
That's what she said.
Wow. Yeah. Anyway,
we've diverted into the gutter already.
we certainly
Hey,
have.
Nick, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
It's like the old. Remember was it
Verizon.
Morris? What's his name from SNL? Where it's like we have the the interpretation for those that are hard of hearing, and he's like, "Can
Yelling.
you hear me now?"
Garrett Morris, wasn't it?
Garrett Morris.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
thank you.
Sure.
That's the first thing I thought about. All right. I should probably check the private chat. Audio out again. Well, that's too bad for you because we're doing the show. Okay.
Good deal.
So, all right. Let's get into it. Let's continue the top 20 women, and no particular order, but I'm going to let you kind of kick it off, Mick, and then you hand it off to Joe, and I'm going to go and get the pictures ready.
It's interesting. We've talked many times how the women's wrestling scene has changed so drastically, Joe, over the years. Back in the AWA days and even prior to that, they were a sideshow. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. They were kind of a feature attraction that might appear in a town or a city maybe once, maybe twice a year on a holiday card or something like that. Certainly nowhere near what you're seeing today, where they're half the card and many times the main event on the card. And, we've talked before that in the AWA, Sheri Martell was probably the one who kicked everything off. But I would say on the overall, tell me if you agree with this, the women's wrestling, I don't want to say evolution, revolution, but the coming of age might have been Wendy Richter and her Cyndi Lauper rock and wrestling connection. That might have been the one that on a national scale really opened up the eyes.
Well, first want to address what you said about how. Suppose I should put my mic so that you guys might be able to hear me better.
There we go.
But when you say that they were a feature, it really was more of a gimmick, much like the midgets. There was no real tracking of a championship belt, of a tag team championship belt. We brought it up before how somebody would come in, they would have the belts, and then they disappeared. I think at Super Sunday, Wendy Richter and Velvet McIntyre were the AWA Women's Tag Team Champions. I don't think anybody knew that was a thing before, and it certainly wasn't a thing after. But then to move forward to the Sheri versus Wendy Richter, I would agree with your assessment that Wendy Richter and the Rock and Wrestling at WrestleMania 1 catapulted women's wrestling. At least it helped to start to elevate it. But the WWE, or WWF at the time, they still didn't really feature a lot of women's wrestling.
Exactly.
Where Sheri and the AWA, I think, did it a little bit more. It was still more of a feature type of a thing. But when it comes to Sheri, and this is nothing against the women before her, but Sheri's abilities in the ring, on the mic, to me, she was like the grandmother, if you will, of modern day women's wrestling. So I'll go this route. How about if we give credit to both? Wendy Richter helped launch it on a national or international basis, but Sheri Martell did it inside the ring.
Couldn't agree with you more. And, that'll kind of segue into the names that we have on the list. We're not ranking a top 20 here. The first couple of names are more recognizable. As I look through the history of the AWA women's wrestling roster, there really wasn't any consistency, because you go back to the days when they were just a feature attraction, along with the little people or whatever, might be. So the names are, I would say a lot of the names on this list, and I think we got 20, 21 names, some of them may have just appeared in the AWA a handful of times, but that was the AWA women's wrestling roster. There was no consistency like you see today, where a Becky Lynch or a Rhea Ripley stays with the promotion forever. It was nothing like that. And we can't emphasize that enough. If you did not follow that era in wrestling, you have no idea. So it's going to kind of look like a hit and miss. Did she really wrestle in the AWA? Well, yeah, she did. Maybe once, maybe twice, maybe a couple of years. One, I will say, Fabulous Moolah, for example, is not on this list. She's not going to be, but I was corrected on a show we did several months ago that Moolah actually made a couple of appearances on AWA shows, and I forget where, if they were in San Francisco, someplace off the beaten path. For an AWA show. So we got some interesting women that we're going to be talking about, all paid their dues, made their way in the wrestling business. Some you'll recognize, some you'll say, huh? But they were all AWA lady performers. And we're going to start with her. Unreal. And Joe, I couldn't agree with you more on every aspect of Sheri Martell. She took not only AWA women's wrestling, but the sport in general, as far as I'm concerned, to another level, both as a talker, as a manager, as a wrestler. Sheri Martell was the real deal.
I'm trying to think of the proper way to say this. I've already expounded on my thoughts of Sheri Martell and what she did for women's wrestling. But another one of the things that she sort of did, she sexed it up.
Yeah.
She, the women back in the day dressed very conservatively, one-piece bathing suits, covered up very well. Sheri pushed the envelope on that. And that to me is just another example of why I give credit to Sheri Martell for being the pioneer of modern day wrestling.
No question about it. I mean, she is, an argument can be made. You go ahead, Chris. You can go to the second one. An argument can be made. If you're an AWA fan, a lot of people will say the Deuce, Madusa Machili. What I would say about her AWA run was, even though she was a champion, it was pretty non-eventful in terms of her delivery in the ring. And she'll be the first one to admit it. Champion though she was, the opposition was very, very limited in scope, and she was green as grass. She'll be the first person to admit it. But when she left the AWA, of course, then everything expanded and, took off for her in Japan, and then as Alundra Blaze and all over the world. So certainly, if she's not number one, she's number two, number three, she's it.
Deuce did for women's wrestling what Sheri did in the beginning. Deuce elevated it even further than Sheri did. Sexed it up, just did the whole spiel. In fact, Sheri even gives credit to Deuce gives credit to Sheri and talks about how nervous she was doing Super Clash 2, her first match, and so forth. So, Chris, we can move on to the next one. An old school gal who we've brought up on this show many times, Vivian Vachon.
Vivian Vachon, and again, now Vivian is early 1970s, and to give it some kind of context, she was here in wrestling before women's wrestling was allowed at Madison Square Garden. The Fabulous Moolah and Vicky Williams were the first two women to wrestle at the Garden, and I believe that was 1972, and Vivian had been here in 71. Gorgeous, but a Vachon through and through. I don't know if Vivian ever wrestled as a babyface in her career. If she did, not very often. And tragically, of course, back 35 years or so ago, 36 years, she and her daughter were actually killed by a drunk driver in an automobile accident, left us way too soon. But Vivian was a Vachon. She had the mannerisms, she had the styles, she had the roughhousing. She was incredible, Vivian Vachon.
So what is the exact family connection? Was she the sister?
Yes.
Sister of Butcher and Maurice?
Yes, she was the sister, a family of 13.
Wow.
In the Vachon family, scattered all over from probably Algeria to Omaha up to Montreal. I think is probably where they all settled. But yeah, Vivian, she was a big husky gal, no nonsense. If you ever get a chance to rent the movie, I think it's still out there someplace, maybe on an old VHS tape somewhere. The Wrestling Queen was all about Vivian Vachon, kind of a documentary. And again, one of the Trailblazers starting in, 1971, I believe. But Vivian, one of my all-time favorites. No question. AWA mainstay.
Had a quick peek earlier. There you go. Another old school gal.
Kay Noble. I've talked about Kay many, many times. When you talk about a tough lady wrestler, this may be the toughest of all. And not only was she tough, but she was not afraid of anything. And I mentioned before, if there was a full-scale brawl going on in the ring with the male wrestlers and the fans got out of hand, Kay was one of the first people to leave the locker room and go into the ring and start throwing rights and lefts and taking care of business. She was absolutely fearless. At one time, she was married to Doug Gilbert, Mr. High, of the AWA tag team of Gilbert and Steinborn. But when you talk about the greats of all time, Kay Noble is right up there. I mentioned on a previous show, depending on how you look at the AWA's championship roster for women, she had the title for about 8 years. And maybe didn't defend it but 3 times in the 8 years, but she was still a ladies champion. Honest to God, rough, tough, but every bit a lady, Kay Noble.
And there's an example of what I was talking about earlier, the attire.
Yep.
The very covered up one piece. The women didn't wear pantyhose or stockings back in the day to help make their legs look a little smoother and, cover up whatever imperfections they might think that they have. But there's the attire. That's what women wrestlers wore back in the day.
Yeah,
come a long way, baby.
Long way. All right, let's get to our, and again, no particular order. My God, there we go. Candy Divine. Candy, the late Candy Divine. She was such a sweetheart. I mean, Joe, you knew Candy very well. We both worked with her. She was the girlfriend, and I don't think they ever got married, but of Tom Beef Burton was her man. Candy Divine, another former AWA ladies champion. She got into the business as a fan. She was a member of the Wrestling Fans International Association, would attend the fan conventions along with the Jim Cornettes of the world back in the day. And Candy, just a sweetheart. Spent some time with both her and Sheri Martell prior to Wrestle Rock. The last time I saw Candy was in Atlanta in 2011. Hadn't seen her for many, many years, and it was like old home week. And what a gorgeous gal, and sweet as pie, and dearly missed by those who knew her in the business.
Yeah, and to clarify, this is a promo photo. This was not her ring attire.
Right.
Candy was the same generation of the Sheri Martell and Madusa Michellis. She helped to transition. You got to include her into the whole Sheri Martell transitioning era. Candy went from wearing the very covered up attire to being a little bit more. We'll just put it that way.
It was a quick transition too. Once it took hold, it steamrolled.
Yep.
Candy Divine. God, I miss that lady. All right, let's see who we got now. Betty Nicolai. Betty Nicolai wrestled not only in the AWA, but she wrestled NWA a lot over her career, many, many years as a professional wrestler. She had a running feud with a lady that you will put up a photo of in just a little bit. Joe, you remember Akio Sato?
Yes.
Who wrestled, of course, in the AWA, kind of in its dying days towards the end of the run. Betty Nicolai was married to Akio Sato, and one of the great veteran lady wrestlers of all time. If you look at those magazines from the 1970s, almost every time you saw an article on women's wrestling, there was Betty Nicolai feuding with somebody, headlining shows in Kansas City and all over the place. Not a lot of time spent in the AWA, but she definitely was here, put some time in, and one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, her I don't remember. Are we going back to the 60s?
70s for sure.
Okay.
70s for sure. And as I say, Betty, if you picked up a wrestling magazine, if not on the cover, then the first article that you saw when you went inside the magazine, Girls Ride in St. Louis or whatever it was, you can bet Betty Nicolai was part of that production.
Okay.
All right, who do we got next?
About this, I get to learn some of the names as well.
You know, she's still beautiful today, and that is a more recent picture of the lady who got it all started with the Rock and Wrestling connection, and that is Wendy Richter. Wendy was part of perhaps wrestling's first screw job before the Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels situation. Wendy was kind of duped into getting pinned by the fabulous Moolah, who was working as Spider Lady in New York. They wanted to teach Wendy a lesson for asking for more money. And the way they did it was to do a fast count, and Moolah under a mask. Wendy got pissed off, ripped the mask off of Moolah, or off of Spider Lady, revealing the fabulous Moolah. And Wendy and the WWF went their separate ways for many years until Wendy was inducted into their Hall of Fame.
And Wendy actually came back to the AWA.
Yes.
And wrestled for, more than a cup of coffee, as to steal a phrase that you like to use.
Yeah, she was absolutely. Wendy made a big splash in the AWA. And again, you're talking about late 80s that she returns here. So the AWA is kind of going downhill a little bit, but still Wendy Richter was a marquee name in the AWA, no question about it. And again, still beautiful to this day. I'm guessing Wendy's probably 60 years old, give or take, and she's legendary, no question about it.
Yeah. Who do we have next, Chris?
There's your buddy, Judy Martin. You talk about a down-home Southern country gal. Judy Martin is the real deal. And one of the great veterans in professional wrestling. She wrestled for a long, long time. Of course, she and Leilani Kai wrestled as the Glamour Girls under the tutelage managerialship of Jimmy Hart in the World Wrestling Federation. Judy Martin was a no-nonsense. She's not a swimsuit model by any means. She was a rough, tough, straight-ahead professional wrestler. And that's what it was all about back then. And when you see Judy at the various conventions, and I've seen her many, many times, she makes appearances with the likes of Princess Victoria and Leilani Kai. She's so pleasant, such a nice, soft-spoken lady to deal with. And I know, Joe, I think you told me that she was one of your favorites, actually, Judy Martin.
I don't remember saying that, but she was. She, she was. I mean, Judy was. She was just easy to work with.
Yeah.
Everything that you said about her was correct. The whole Glamour Girls gimmick with Leilani Kai, I loved it, but I can't help but think if the modern day Toni Storm didn't sort of take a little bit off of that whole tag team gimmick. By the way, side note, I love the Toni Storm gimmick.
She's brilliant.
She is absolutely incredible. One of my favorite modern day women wrestlers to watch.
You had mentioned Judy Martin, her AWA run, and she was at Super Sunday, I believe, in a tag team match. She made sporadic, periodic appearances in the AWA, didn't come in too often, wrestled all over the world, literally, from here to Japan. In Georgia Championship Wrestling, she had a great run in the early 1980s. One of the great veterans of pro wrestling. And if you have a legit Hall of Fame for women, she's in it.
Well, you bring up a point. Outside of Sheri and Madusa, I would say, in the AWA, and then Wendy Richter for a short time in the WWF, women weren't really a part of the roster.
That's right.
They were... I mean, every wrestler was an indie wrestler, an independent contractor. Okay, contracts didn't really start happening. I'm sure Hogan was probably under contract. You know, it's when it all started. But the women were just like, hey, yeah, we're gonna, you know, it's that time of year. Let's bring in women. So they were in, they were out. They weren't a part of the main roster where, okay, we're going to do a 6-month run with you and do this angle.
Exactly.
So,
you know, it's interesting. Yeah, and if you think about it, Joe, they brought them in periodically, but it was typically on big shows. It was either a holiday show, Christmas extravaganza, Super Sunday, Wrestle Rock, whatever it was. The women were featured, so they did have their niche as an attraction on the big shows as well, to their credit. Now they're on every week.
Correct. And that goes right back to Sheri. You know, she was really that I remember. I mean, other territories may have been different, but in the AWA, Sheri was the first female wrestler who became a part of the roster.
The roster, yes.
You know, whether as a manager or as a wrestler, she became a part of it. She was there for interview days.
Yep. There you go.
Had to include that.
Joyce Grable. Joyce, who passed away not that long ago. You know, I keep extolling the virtues of the likes of Judy Martin. Again, Joyce Grable was an all-time great. And she did appear in the AWA a couple of times, more than a couple, actually. I know at one point she did team up with Wendy Richter up here as a heel tag team combination back in the days when Wendy Richter was Cowgirl Wendy Richter before the Rock and Wrestling connection. Joyce had battled illness for the last several years of her life, had made a comeback health-wise. The Cauliflower Alley Club actually gave her a Courage Award one year for her battles with illness and coming back. And if you talk to Joyce Grable, this lady lit up a room with her smile. She was as sweet as can be, but again, one of the wrestlers that probably does not get the credit she deserves in terms of her impact on the business. She was so good in a day where it was wrestling more so than, gimmicks and glitz and glamour and what have you. Joyce Grable, one of the all-time greats. And again, she was in that Georgia Championship Wrestling territory, I want to say 1980, 83-ish. Steve Olsenowski was down there as the national heavyweight champion in Georgia. And I believe he wrestled in a mixed match, either against Judy Martin or Joyce Grable. And I forget who, if it was a singles match or a tag match, but that's on Steve's resume someplace as well. But again, a lady sorely missed, Joyce Grable.
And you said the mixed matches, that was back in the day. If it was a male and a female tag team, against a male and a female. And if a tag happened, then the other side had to tag in. They would not let women wrestle men. Totally different story today.
Oh, totally different story. Even if you have the rule in place today, it lasts for about 5 minutes into the match, and then it's forgotten.
Yep. Okay.
Oh, there she is. A personal favorite of mine, and I know one of the most popular guests that we've had on the podcast, that is Princess Little Cloud, a.k.a. Dixie Jordan, one of the real trailblazers in the business. I believe Dixie told me that she started wrestling, maybe she was 16, 17 years old. I'm not sure, but she was here in the AWA in the early and mid 1960s. Somewhere along the way, she defeated the fabulous Moolah in a championship match, but it was one of those phantom matches that unfortunately was not reported anywhere outside of the arena where it took place. And I asked Dixie about it, and she said, I don't know. Somebody told me that I pinned Moolah. I think I remember that, but she wasn't real specific. But again, one of the all-time greats in the 1960s. And yes, she is a real Native American. There's no charade about that. And one of my best friends in the world. And I can't say enough good things about Princess Little Cloud. And there she was. She is the in Wrestling Review 1965 in their calendar, their in magazine calendar, Princess Little Cloud. What a sweetheart. At one time, of course, married to Eddie Sharkey. Right when Eddie went up and shot up the wrestling office at the AWA Dykeman Hotel because Vern had apparently mishandled his wife, Dixie Jordan. God, the stories in this business.
October of 65, and she was a calendar pinup. All I got to say is I guess the calendar pinups have come a long way as well.
Yeah, I think there's a little difference there too. Yes.
Yep. Who's next, Chris?
Who do we got? This is Jean Antone. And I had mentioned Betty Nicolai early on, and one of the legendary feuds in professional wrestling was with Jean Antone. Jean is one of those trailblazers that wrestled in the 60s all over the country, made appearances here in the AWA. Yes, you can look it up on AWA results. She's there. They called her Gidget because I believe at best, standing on a Chicago phone book, she was probably 5 foot tall. One of the great stories, and I wish I still had the magazine. At some place, she was on the same show as Andre the Giant. And I don't know if it was Andre's birthday or what have you, but little Gidget, little Jean Antone, all 5 foot of her, shoved Andre's face into cake, or shoved the cake into Andre's face. She probably came up to Andre's kneecap, but, legendary for that, and a very, very tough lady. Again, passed away, not with us anymore, but Jean Antone, all-time great.
I can't believe that her attire was what she wore in the ring. I mean, she looks like June Cleaver holding a championship belt on there. You know, it's not the bathing suit one piece type of a thing.
Yeah, and again, if you are not familiar with the ladies wrestling of the past, you're looking at these pictures and you're thinking, "What, are you kidding me?" No, they're not fitness models, folks. They are not glamour girls, pardon the expression. And they're not cookie cutter coming out of the WWE training facility or developmental or whatever. They were lady wrestlers, and they were no nonsense. And they went in and they gave you 15, 20, 30 minutes of a wrestling match as part of the show.
All right. Who's next, Chris? This one I know.
This one, that would be Peggy Lee Leather. And you look at that picture and you think, my God, she looks tough. Well, you know what? she was, in fact, really tough. This is the Peggy Lee Leather, the real deal. I believe, and I'm not speaking out of turn, I believe she was the partner of lady wrestler Bambi. And I'm talking about a personal relationship outside the ring for many, many years. Peggy Lee, as tough as they come. When Tor Berg was running the LPWA, Peggy Lee put on a mask and wrestled as Lady X for that promotion. One story I've told before, I worked with Peggy at the Showboat. You had to be there, Joe. Got into the ring and introduced Peggy. And as I'm walking out of the ring, I'm going to make my way slow as I am. And I got in Peggy's way. And she was making her way towards the center of the ring, and I was climbing through the ropes. And Peggy basically said to me, whispered it. She said, "Will you get the fuck out of my way, please?" And I turned around and I just said, "Yes, ma'am." And I hightailed it out of the ring. Peggy Lee Leather. Yeah, this is no nonsense. You can look at that picture and there's nothing glamorous. There's nothing fancy about her. But you know what? You didn't want to take her out on a prom date either, if you valued your life.
Well, you brought up Bambi, and I noticed that she's not on this list. Of course, there's several others that weren't included on there, but Bambi was yet another one in the 80s that wrestled at the Showboat more than a couple of times for the AWA.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, all right, who's next, Chris?
Who's coming up? Who's the roster? What happened? Anybody home?
I think he's fixing his hair.
There. Stan Laurel lives with that hairstyle. Despina Montagas. Despina wrestled in the AWA. Joe, I believe she was at Wrestle Rock and made other appearances around the horn in the AWA area. Again, very, very tough individual. Despina was, I don't know if she was a bodybuilder or weightlifter, but she was strong as an ox, legendary in the business, real strong. And another no-nonsense, straight-ahead competitor. Mm-hmm. Hadn't been out of the business all that long, and we still see her at conventions around the horn. Here's an interesting story about Despina. I love these little side stories. I had a picture of her giving a knee lift to somebody from some match somewhere. I don't know if it was AWA or not. And I saw Despina at Cauliflower Alley Club, and I handed her the picture, and she looked at it. She says, "My God, what's the matter?" She says, "Did you look at this picture? There's a hole in my crotch right there in the suit." And I said, "Well, my God, there is." I said, "I did not notice that." And she said, "Not going to be there." And she signed her name right across the hole in her crotch in the suit. Legendary moment for me. I'm not sure about her, but again, Despina Montagas, very, very tough lady wrestler. No nonsense, straight ahead, old school all the way.
You talked about how strong she was. Right away, the thought popped into my mind. Her build, while not as muscular, reminds me of Jordan Grace.
Yes,
short but powerful.
Yeah, very much so. Good analogy there, no question. Yeah. Again, very pleasant lady outside the ring. No bullshit once the bell rang.
Yeah. All right. Who's next?
Who do we got? Who do we got?
I don't think I've got a picture for the next one, guys.
Oh, okay.
don't
All right.
think
Well, then
that-
let's go to the one after that.
Let's go to the one after that. Okay, I'm just looking at it now. I think the one after. Let me go ahead and bring that up. And this one I do. Yes.
All right, here we go. Oh, that would be Palestina. Palestina, the Syrian terrorist. She wrestled at that infamous Super Clash 3, Joe. I believe she won a women's battle royal, a lingerie battle royal, if I remember correctly. She was a heel in the POW organization. I don't know her real name. I used to know it. I'll tell you what, when you talk about lookers in the business, I don't care what garb she was wearing. Palestina, yeah, she really did it. And again, considering when she got into the business, she was pretty damn good. You know, a lot of the POW girls and the Glow girls, maybe you were lacking a little bit in actual in-ring technical skills. Not Palestina. Obviously, she was a heel wrestler and a good one.
Yeah, you brought up POW and Glow. Just real briefly on that. Glow was a bunch of women, mainly women who were models. If you've ever seen the Glow Netflix documentary,
yeah,
they do a good job of explaining what it was. They just took a bunch of women and taught them some moves and how to wrestle. POW tried to take it to the next level, tried to combine Glow with women who could wrestle, but they still had a few models into the mix. Palestina was one who could wrestle. Ivory, who was, I forget her name back in the Glow days, but she was Ivory.
Tina Moretti.
There you go. You know, she was a wrestler, and that's why she had the championship. But, you know, you had a couple of them that could. But I bring that up because Glow sort of helped with the transition from the one-piece unflattering bathing suit to more of a better look. I'll put it that way. I don't want to try to.
Joe, there was another extension of that too. I believe you were involved in some kind of a promotion where clothing was not required.
As were you for a little bit.
Pardon me?
Yeah, Rock Hard. Or no, Kayfabe.
No. It was our kayfabe. Yeah, the NWWL, I forget what the letters stood for, the acronym. But needless to say, Palestina, good-looking lady, and I saw her at Cauliflower Alley Club, made an appearance with the original Glow or POW girls, whichever they were at the time, and looked a little bit different than her in-ring days.
NWWL, no way we look.
Wow.
They looked
very, very good. Yeah. Mo Booty.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Oh my God. Here's a name, and I should know her real name, and I don't, but that's Mars Monroe. And Mars Monroe was a regular in the AWA area, wrestled in the Twin Cities a lot. And she was about the time that you had the K Nobles of the world, and even before that, the Princess Little Clouds of the world. Mars Monroe, it's interesting. I got a conversation from a gentleman who runs a ladies wrestling website. And he said, what can you tell me about Mars Monroe? Because there's not a lot about her out in the archives of professional wrestling for somebody who wrestled as long and as often as she did. And it was very true. Very kind of private lady. Didn't make waves, but again, would get in the ring, deliver a solid performance. And again, Joe, you're talking a time where, yeah, there was no two-piece, no lingerie battle royals, no pillow fights, none of that. And Mars Monroe was a regular on the AWA and the national wrestling scene. And again, passed away not all that long ago.
Yeah, another one I'd never heard of her name. So I'm glad that we can give them some credit here on our podcast.
Absolutely. And I want to, before Chris puts up the next picture too, I want to say that's what we're doing. These ladies are largely not ignored, but they don't get the credit that they deserved. They worked as hard as the guys. And yeah, okay, they maybe came into a town once, twice a year, but that didn't mean they weren't on the road 300 days a year. They were just not signed to or continuing to perform in the same area back then.
Trailblazers for what is modern day women's wrestling. I mean, they helped open the door to even allow women into the ring.
Yeah, you got it.
So,
yeah. All right. Who was Betty Boucher? And she had a sister, Rita, and they were actually legitimate sisters. And Dixie Jordan has told me that the real last name was not Boucher, and it's spelled Boucher. It was a variation of that. But Betty Boucher, another one. When you go back to the wrestling magazines of the 60s and early 70s, and there's a women's wrestling section, Betty Boucher was a regular. And I know she wrestled Dixie many, many times. They still maintain contact on the phone. Betty Boucher is still with us, thank goodness. Saw a picture of her recently. She has aged very, very well. But again, another no-nonsense lady wrestler. And you look at her, she was not big in stature and height, but a spitfire in the ring. That's the way it was back then, folks, in women's wrestling.
You brought up the Boucher name, and I couldn't help but think of Adam Sandler's character, Bobby Boucher, in The Waterboy.
Bobby, yes, very, very good.
Madusa Amblangada.
Yeah, I'm sure no relation to the Boucher sisters. All right, who's next? Who? Well, these are a couple of good-looking women right there. Chris,
you're working with different eyes than I
am. Chris has on the screen. There's our good friend, and it says so right there. There, the proof is in the pudding. To my dear friend Mick, that is Velvet McIntyre, and full transparency, I've tried so hard to get Velvet on the podcast. She was, again, one of those wrestlers from the 1980s that was a big-time star everywhere she appeared, including the AWA, NWA, WWF, the master of the big swing, where she would take her opponent by the legs and do the big swing around the ring a la Cesaro. Velvet does not want to be on the show because she's shy. She's bashful. And I'm not speaking out of turn here. I cut an interview with her at an LPWA taping back in 1990 or 92. And she was, for somebody who had been in the spotlight on the main stage, she was nervous as hell to cut a promo. And, I don't think we had to do a retake, but it's just not for everybody. And despite the lack of promo skills, she was a terrific competitor and great performer in the ring. One of my favorite people. Maintain contact with her on Facebook a lot. Velvet McIntyre.
Yeah, it's surprising that somebody who can go and wrestle in front of hundreds, thousands of people is shy.
Yeah.
And it just, but it does happen. I mean, there were plenty of wrestlers who they could go in the ring and perform, male wrestlers who could go in the ring and perform, but you put a microphone in front of them and they were a deer in headlights. An amazing dichotomy of just, it's professional wrestling and they're people and everybody has their own little issue.
Yeah, and you know what? And then there's the flip side of that. There's the guys that could talk a blue streak, but couldn't wrestle worth the shit.
Yeah.
Once the bell rang, and we've talked about some of those over the years too. But if we ever get a chance, I begged her. I mean, I said, Phil, come on. We'd love to get you on the show. You've had a really great career. She's not budging. So that's about as close as we're going to get to having Velvet McIntyre on the podcast, I'm afraid.
Okay, we got a couple more left. Who's next, Chris?
I know this lady. That would be Dawn Lemke. Dawn, who was brought into the business in, I believe, 1970 or 71 by our good friend AWA enhancement talent, Cesar Pabon. Cesar had a training facility in the Milwaukee area, and both men and women attended his training facility. And Dawn was an early member of that AWA roster. She 1971 or 72, I forget which. She was actually the Women's Wrestling Rookie of the Year and made the cover of Wrestling Review. At one time, she was romantically linked for a handful of years to the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. And Dawn kind of fell off the radar of the wrestling world for many, many years, resurfaced back in 2015 at the various conventions. And not sure what she's doing now, but again, a mainstay here in the AWA, kind of mentored by Kay Noble and Vivian Vachon. So she certainly got some good trainers under her belt as well.
Yeah, another one whose name I've heard a lot of, but I don't really remember watching or seeing her wrestle. We've got one more on the list. Bring her up, Chris.
Let's take a peek and see.
Yeah, I'm looking for this one either, too, guys, and I'm looking for this one too. Bear with me.
If it's the one that I'm thinking of, I would be in the photograph as well.
Oh, there it is. Okay, yep, I see it.
All right, there you got it.
I see it.
There we go. That again, Joe, you would be familiar with the magnificent Mimi. She did not have a long run as a professional wrestler, but wrestled at those Rochester tapings for the AWA in the dying days of the promotion. She actually a movie actress and martial artist is the magnificent Mimi. Let me say this, Joe. Mimi was in the ring at one of those Rochester tapings, and she had a T-shirt on when she came into the ring. And when she took the T-shirt off, she kind of, I don't know how to say this.
It was a striptease.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably accurate. And she wound up like must have been sweating in a certain area or something, and used the T-shirt to kind of dry off in front of the 4 fans at the, at the auditorium in Rochester, Minnesota. What's she doing today? I'll tell you what she's doing today. She's on the internet, and she delivers these 1 or 2 minute inspirational talks, seriously, about having a great life and look forward to it and go get life, be happy, and so on and so forth. Kind of over the top, if you will, in her presentation, but she's still out there. That's the magnificent Mimi.
Very short run. Wasn't exactly of how do I put this? She wasn't of the caliber of a Sheri Martell or Madusa in her ring work. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and I don't think that Mimi was necessarily, she wouldn't be compared to a Luthez, but I don't think that was the idea behind the magnificent Mimi. She was there, and let's call it what it is. She was there as eye candy. And again, you're making that transition from the old days to the new days in terms of attire. And she was right there, no doubt about it.
Indeed.
All right.
All right. So is that it? Yeah, I apologize. I couldn't find the Mimi picture, but once you mentioned you were in it, then yeah. So is that it, or was there?
Wait, I think there's one more, Chris. There's one more photograph. Could put that up on the screen.
Well, this has just been a
not on the
bumble.
list.
Yeah. Not
Okay. Is this?
Huh. That is Eve Torres. Eve Torres.
Yeah, I know who that is.
That's Eve Torres. Yeah. There you
Yeah,
go.
I know.
And one of the top names in lady wrestling.
But
She's not an AWA.
yeah,
so
not an
what-
eight. So what's the hook?
I don't know. I don't know. I just thought, you might want to look at Eve Torres for a minute.
I can't argue with it, but
All right.
just for the record, she's not AWA.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I hate to break it to you, but somebody's going to tell you she never wrestled in the AWA.
I didn't know that.
I think she wrestled with Mick in his mind, and so by extension, she was a part of the AWA.
Oh, okay. Well, we were wondering what the hook was. Well, we know what the hook is.
I think by extension is really overstating the case, but yes, there has been.
Well, by definition, the extension is more than what it was. How much of the extension is a whole different story.
How much do you weigh?
How much are you weigh?
All right.
Eve Torres, ladies and gentlemen, legendary AWA wrestler Eve Torres. Sorry, guys.
I'm not going to complain about having the picture up.
No.
All right, let's get to our shout outs and then bring it home.
All right, I'm going to shout out quietly to my friend Russ Schoberg. Russ is a longtime fan of the business and fan of the podcast, fan of AWA Unleashed fans page, Slick Mick page. Nice guy, Russ Schoberg.
And my shout out goes to a longtime friend, a new member of AWA Unleashed, South St. Paul guy, Bob Jarakowski. Every time I ran into Bobby at a certain establishment that I've never been to, professional wrestling in particular, the AWA would always come up.
Are you talking about like Bennigan's or TGI Fridays?
Sure.
Dave and Buster's?
Sure.
Croatian Hall?
As the crow flies.
As the crow flies. Okay. And I am going to give a shout out to my grandmother, who I lost just a couple of days ago. It's been a hard couple of days because, when you have kind of an upbringing that I had, you look for your parental, influences in certain areas. And she was really one of them that was so influential to me growing up and as a kid. So I lost her just, when this comes about a week ago when this comes out. So just want to say I love you, Grandma, and I'm going to miss you. And that's my shout out. So there we go. And we're going to end it there. No silly gimmicks. So I just want to say, rest in peace, Grandma. Love you.